that's another point too. If you say something that would provoke a story or a memory of somebody else, then you got some gold right there, because then that just makes them relive that whole moment over again, like what I just said. Yo, what up? Welcome to the 28th episode of the Resolution Podcast, where we break down lyrics and stuff. And I'm going to try that intro again. Hold on. What's up? Welcome to the 20th episode of the Resolution Podcast, where we help rappers gain clarity on their calling. I'm your host with the most, Alex Lacey. And this week, we're going to be breaking down one of my childhood favorite songs, and that is I Wish by Stevie Wonder, and just the stories that he tells. So good. You probably know this song. At least I think first time, I'm a 2000s kid, so I think the first time I got introduced to this song was during no, it wasn't during. It was the first time I saw Happy Feet, and which was kind of funny because that became my nickname as I grew up. But anyway, yeah, it was just a dope soundtrack for my life. Like, again, we were listening to that song, and then in a couple episodes I mentioned we listened a lot of Living for the City, which I think they're on the same album. I think they're on the Songs in the Key of Life, but I could be wrong. But yeah, let's break down some of the instances he shows in this song and just the way he goes about his approach to it. So his approach to this song is just talking about the good old days, the memories, and that is something super relatable. So if you're kind of trying to find a topic for a song that you really want to do that will hit home for a lot of people, talking about the good old days is a really underrated way of getting to the heart of those people. I mean, for me, if I was an artist and I was trying to just get the low hanging fruit of like what everybody would relate to, I would just talk about, the high school football games or prom or just like the high school experiences in general, or even just like like maybe some childhood TV shows too. I'm thinking about like Dexter's Laboratory, or I mean SpongeBob. Everyone knows that one, but what are some other ones? Like Scooby Doo, from if anybody's watched the Boomerang Network. Yeah, we didn't have a Cartoon Network, so I wasn't able to watch like Adventure Time or anything like that. But Boomerang, where it was like the old reruns, like there was like Scooby Doo. I already mentioned that one, but there was also, I mean, like Tom and Jerry, of course, or even talking about like old video games. Like you could talk about the Wii. I remember the first time we got the Wii for Christmas. I was so pissed because I thought my mom didn't get it for me for Christmas, and she doesn't let me live this down to this day. I was so sad, and she was like, "You were so spoiled. We should have just never given it to you." I'm like, "Man, you might have had a point," but we ended up getting it, and I was like, "Thank you," because that was like a defining moment of childhood. Like Super Mario Bros. My brother and I, every single day after school, we would be on that. It was so much fun. So just talking about, I mean, you're seeing the reaction of how I'm talking about it. If you just basically took that emotion that you had from experiences and that your fan base would also relate to, talk about them, because they would love to hear that. And nobody's doing that right now. So that's just like, it's easy money. But what he does is he starts out with, as we kind of talked about in the storytelling tactics series, I guess I can actually leave a card up to, or leave a link in the description. I'll leave a link in the description to my 21st episode talking about the and but so framework, where basically the and states the setting, the subject, and then the start of the journey. And the setting is kind of a combination of, it definitely includes the time, but it can include like the place, when and where this story is taking place. So he starts out with, looking back on when I was a little nappy-headed boy. So looking back on when that's basically saying, he doesn't necessarily give an age. He doesn't say how long ago it was, but we can get a pretty, I mean, he's a little boy, so that's probably, I don't know how old he was when he wrote it, but definitely older, like not older, but he was very young. So my guesstimate is like maybe early middle school, something like that. And he says, then my only worry was for Christmas, what would be my toy? And that's we all relate to that. That's regardless of time period. Like we all are just super. I mean, growing up, you remember growing up and you're in like sixth grade and like you saw the presents underneath the tree and you're like, yo, what's gonna be in there? Like, what's that? What's is it gonna be what I always wanted? Is it gonna be that? And then you're just like super hyped. So we all can relate to that line. And he says, even though we sometimes would not get a thing, we were happy with the joy the day would bring. So even though he wasn't getting anything, he was still stoked about that day just because the joy that it brought, I mean, the joy that it would bring. He just loved the feeling of waking up Christmas morning. I actually don't know where Stevie Wonder's from. Drop in the comments if you know where he's from, but just that alone, maybe he had a white Christmas and that was it. And just seeing like the lights on the tree, just seeing the ornaments hanging on it, just seeing maybe the lights on the other houses, maybe even going to the mall and just seeing all the crazy glitz and glamour that's going on there, and seeing like Santa Claus taking pictures with the kids. I mean, there's a lot that comes around with it. I mean, there's a lot of actually, I guess side note, as I've kind of gotten older, I've kind of seen a lot of the capitalist stuff that happens during Christmas, which kind of makes me go, but that's neither here nor there. We're gonna keep the good vibes going with this one. So he's still happy with the day would with the day the with the day would bring that the day would bring. I'm gonna try that again. He was still happy with the joy that the day brought to his family and just created a ton of great memories. The next story he talks about is sneaking out the back door to hang out with those hoodlum friends of mine. And then, just like little kids, we were all getting into trouble. So every year, I think starting from kindergarten up until like fourth grade, fourth? Yeah, it was fourth grade. I was sent to the principal's office, or they had a thing called skills where basically you would like have to write like an essay about like what you did wrong and why you wouldn't do it again. But it's still the same thing. So like every year, I was a little troublemaker back in the day, so I can kind of relate to this one. And I was I was kicking it with some not great kids too, which I learned a lot from them. And like they were just, yeah, I had some hoodlum friends. So just hanging out with those hoodlum friends of mine, that's something I can kind of relate to as well. Just him saying that makes me think of stories that I have that I've experienced with the friends that I had back in the day. That's another point too. If you say something that would provoke a story or a memory of somebody else, then you got some gold right there, because then that just makes them relive that whole moment over again. Like what I just said, I was like, I just thought up like two or three stories just from him saying that, just reading that line. But I don't relate to this one, but this is something that you might relate to. Like if you're into sneaking out and stuff, just like greeted at the back door, boy, I thought I told you not to go outside. So we don't know if it's like his mom talking or his sister or whatever, but it's still just the same thing of like, yo, you got into trouble again. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, this whole song is about him getting into trouble when he was younger, which is funny, but like a lot of people relate to it just because he actually goes on to tell why. So if you want to stick around to the end of the podcast, we'll break that down. And trying your breath. So he says, greeted at the back door. Boy, I thought I told you not to go outside. Trying your best to bring the water to your eyes. So like fake tears. Thinking it might stop her from whooping your behind. I wish those days, man. I love that song so much. But trying your best to bring the water into your eyes, thinking it might stop her. So he's probably talking about his mom. I never really had to do that. Thankfully, I was like, I had the kind of the, I don't know, I guess the smarts, I guess, to not be doing crocodile tears in front of my mom, because I know she would have gotten even more pissed. But just the hook is so good. I could talk for a minute about the hook, but it's just I wish those days could come back once more. And then verse 2, he's talking about brother said he's telling about you playing doctor with that girl. Just don't tell and I'll give you anything you want in this whole wide world. Which I didn't know. I didn't know the slang playing doctor, but I guess that's like playing an inappropriate game, which I mean, I'm sure you can use your imagination as to what they were doing, but that's what makes me think too is like, oh, that's probably like middle school, maybe early high school, but probably middle school, where like kids are just entering puberty and they're like trying to figure themselves out. And then he like brothers telling him like, I'm gonna go tell on you. Like, I have a younger brother too, so that was definitely like I actually had him on this podcast a bit ago, but we would get into trouble. Like, there were some moments where I wasn't the greatest big brother, but I'd be like, no, 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 don't tell mom, don't tell mom. So just that whole thing. I mean, if you have siblings, I'm sure you can relate to it in some aspect. And then he goes on to say, Mama gives you money for Sunday school. You trade your for candy after church is through. So just again, just using money, like mom's giving you money for some like Sunday school, like she's trying to go to a good thing, but nah, you're gonna keep it and go get some candy for yourself, like a good churchgoer does. But nah, it's just the same stories of just him getting into trouble. And then the next one is him getting in trouble with the teacher and smoking cigarettes and writing something nasty on the wall. It's like, you nasty boy. That's the ad lib. And then teacher sends you to the principal's office down the hall. So like he's just getting in trouble in school, which like I said again, I was doing the same thing, like from kindergarten. Was it kindergarten? I think it was kindergarten. So kindergarten up to like fourth grade, like I was getting in trouble, like at least I think it was about once a year I was sent to like the principal's office because I remember in fifth grade I was like, this is gonna be the year where I break that streak. It's not gonna be happening anymore, and it did. So I think I turned out mildly okay. Anyway, you grow up and learn that kind of thing ain't right. But while you were doing it, it sure fell out of sight, which I guess out of sight is like a slang way back in the day of like thinking, man, it just felt right. It felt so cool. Like you felt like you felt so cool. You felt so good about yourself. And then later, as you grew up, you realized like, yo, this wasn't as cool. But man, those days of getting in trouble and just feeling cool, and those are the days. So if you're able to tap into your audience's memories and what they hold dear to their heart, like their childhood or middle school or even high school, then it's really going to affect them in a great way, and it's going to help them love your music even more. So that's all I have for this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helped you out and help get you some ideas for your next records. And I will see you not next week, but the week after. Again, my life is just crazy right now. I'm still just trying to stay afloat. So thank you so much for being patient. I am planning in the future to go back to the weekly thing like I was doing in the very beginning. But until that happens, I will see you the week after the next. So have a great week, you guys. Peace.